serious. What would you not have believed had you not seen it with your own eyes? My mom tells a lot of stories about her days working as a backup singer in the early 70s. She had talked a few times about knowing a particular musician back then. And I just kind of was, okay mom. Thinking maybe she got called in once to do some vocals and that was it. So one day I found one of this artist's albums had been reissued on CD. Picked it up cheap at a local music store, thinking my mom would like it as it's one I hadn't seen in her collection. She tore off the cellophane, and inside on the liner notes, there are photos of the band from around the time the album had been recorded back in 1970. Right there on the 5th or 6th page is a picture of my mom sitting on a bar stool in the recording studio. I have a perfect story for this. So my friends and I just reached the age to be able to go bridge jumping. Not like suicide, but at a safe height into deep enough water. My friend, Danny, jumped off the bridge, did a backflip, goes underwater for 15 seconds or so, and then comes up holding a striped bass. Coolest kid I've ever met. A camel hanging out at the Great Wall of China in the middle of January. It was my first time in China. It was my first time seeing a camel in person, and all around I was confused as to what a camel was doing just hanging out there. Then again, maybe the camel was confused as to why I was there as well, so I guess we are even. I saw a parrot eating an ice cream cone. Apparently, it was the parrot's 23rd birthday and the owner took it to the Dairy Queen. It just stood on the man's shoulder with the cone in one claw and ate it like a human would. One summer I went on a hiking trip with a couple of friends. One friend is a literal mountain man. He hunts, goes fishing, carves stuff out of wood, that whole thing. Basically he's the guy you want with you if you ever get lost in the wilderness. Anyway, we make it to our camping spot after about 6 hours and we decide to dump our gear and hike up a nearby mountain for a better view. Keep in mind this mountain is steep. We are on our hands and knees climbing up using the grass to hold on to. About halfway up we see a bunch of grouse hiding in the bushes below us. We all spend a couple minutes seeing if we can caveman it and catch us some dinner by trying to hit the grouse with rocks. Obviously, we suck at throwing rocks and don't get anywhere. Then Mountain Man comes up. He has, in his hands, a rock about the size of a basketball. He looks below and gives the rock a small toss. That's when I saw it. The rock drops below, hits one bird that was hiding in a bush, bounces in the air, then proceeds to hit another bird on its second bounce. I didn't believe he hit 2 birds until he went down and picked both of them up with a surprised face. I know it was probably luck, but he's the only person I've ever heard of actually killing 2 birds with 1 stone. That night we cooked the grouse with some seasonings we had and went to bed with full bellies. TLDR. Friend killed 2 birds with 1 stone. As a teen, my friend said nonchalantly that his room was haunted. I was like sure. One day we were sitting on his floor assembling a model and his door just opened. I was like huh, and when I turned to look, it suddenly closed shut. This repeated about 4 times and it really started to freak me out. And no, there was no sibling sitting on the other side with a piece of string or such playing a prank. Other weird stuff would happen. Like one day one of his windows wouldn't open, even though it was unlocked, so I opened the adjacent one. After we left and came back, the window I couldn't open was open, and the other was shut. After anything weird like that, my friend would just say yeah, I told you. About 7 years ago I worked as a tutor in the late afternoon and evening for a company in a really rich area. We parked in a multi-story garage that by the time we left was open so we never had to pay. We were always parked by really expensive BMWs, Mercedes, etc. since we arrived a few hours before 5 PM. My car was in the shop one time, so I took my then boyfriend's 1989 Chevy Silverado, K1500 back then, to work and parked in the garage. When I came out about 5 hours later, I was shocked to see the truck in a different parking spot, the exact opposite one it was in. As I approached it, it was perfectly between the lines of the new spot, and the only off thing was that the tailgate was pressed against the chain link fence that was between the ramp and edge that was separating the levels. This was on a slope and not flat. Nothing looked amiss, and no other car was best to it, but I never would back into a spot in this garage anyway, and I never parked on that side. I get in, and the truck is in reverse, not park, steering wheel shifter. It wasn't moving when I got out to go to work, but eventually this gigantic rusted out truck backed into a, luckily, empty spot on its own, perfectly between the lines, without hitting any parked or moving vehicles in this garage. After that, I always made sure it was in park, as it would sometimes stick, and you'd have to push hard to get it into park, this event being the first time I realized it. Hi. Thanks for watching this video. I'll try to upload somewhat consistently on this channel. You can subscribe and leave a like if you want. It would definitely be much appreciated. See you next time.